angry. So here's the thing. This is the setup. This is what happens. Go and tell David, thus says the Lord, I offer you 3 things. Choose one of them for yourselves that I may do it to you. What a choice. Go tell David, I offer you these things. Choose one of them. And it's interesting, the choices that he has and what's right in front of him. Now, what would you pick? 7 years of famine in the land. What would that look like? 7 years. It sounds like chaos to me. It sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like, boy, do I want to deal with that. Not just famine in the land, but you got all this thing of feeding people, rationing food, people around your tail. It's not going to look pretty. Or there's that other one. Or shall you flee 3 months before your enemies? We got plural here, all your enemies. Running from your enemies for 3 months. David knows a lot about that. That's like, no, that's really, that was hard. He had years of that. The fear, all these things. So here's this other choice. Or 3 days of a plague. 3 months, 7 years, or 3 days of a plague in your land. What would that look like? There's no numbers here. But I really think this is what is kind of telling for him. Is it door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3? None of them are good. It says, now consider and see what answer I should take back to him who sent me. And take note here, God's not talking to David. God is talking to David's prophet. God doesn't want a whole lot to talk with David about right now. It's funny, sometimes God can talk to you through somebody who's telling you the truth. Sometimes we're in a position where we're not speaking with God a whole lot, and he's not speaking with us. But here's this man who comes to David. Who's this man who contacts him and says, thus saith the Lord. He's sure of his message. He has no dog in the fight. And he's going to give David options. And then he's going to have him consider. And there's not a lot of time frame here. Consider what you want to do. And as David considers, I can't imagine such stress. Verse 14 goes on, and David said to Gad, I am in great distress. And we know this is not just happy words, but this is a huge deal for him. This is a hard predicament that he's in, and he's looking at the consequences of ignoring this for 9 months and 20 days, and he's also recognizing this thing goes deeper than I thought it would. $70,000. That's what's going to happen. This is the price of sin. 9 months and 20 days of ignoring the Lord and 70,000 men. But he doesn't know what that number is going to be. He's ignored the counsel of others, and he's going to write it out. 9 months, 20 days of ignoring, this is not a good idea, and going forward and poisoning his whole country. That they have taken their eyes off of God. No longer did the Lord hold a position that he had in their hearts and in their eyes when they started looking at themselves and all that they've accomplished. And he says to him, I am in great distress. But he knows this thing. This is curious, and I think it's Please let us fall. And he says, let us fall. Let us fall into the hand of the Lord, for his mercies are great. He knows that God's mercies are great, for his mercies are great. And there's a familiarity that David is drawing from the mercies of God, because he's been a recipient of God's mercy many times. And I don't think that he's doing this as in, I'm playing my odds. I think he's doing this because he's trusting God. And if God's going to hammer him, he's going to take it. If God's going to be merciful, God will be merciful for a reason. And he's not playing this. He is, in every way, this is the only path I can go by. If I put myself in the hands of I've been screwed over way too many times. And David had many stories of what happened to him. But he is in this place. It's totally in God's hands. And whatever he decides, I will totally and absolutely own it. And what we have here, and what we always do, and it's been very fascinating in the life of David, is that his failures are there. His failures aren't covered up. There's not that many, but the ones he did do were huge and costly, very costly. As a king, as a leader of millions, as one who made huge mistakes, it cost him personally, cost him nationally. It cost him in so many respects. It cost him some of his children. But this is a faith statement, a recognition of it is totally in God's hands. Whatever he decides, I will totally own it. And that's the statement that we're given. I am in great distress. Please let it fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercies are great. But do not let me fall into the hand of man. As Gad left to go tell God, David has to be regretful. He has to be weighing it out, not knowing, I have no idea what's going to become of this. I can't wrap my head around it because this is a faith decision. A faith decision on the judgment of God. Knowing that God will judge correctly. And the judgment of God usually isn't very pleasant because the consequences of the things we do never are. And he is going to allow the consequences of what this man put together. It's going to come down upon him. He is going to own this. And as this goes into play, as Gad brings it to God, this is the deal. So the Lord sent a plague upon Israel from the morning till the appointed time. It's amazing there is a time frame in God. God, in many respects, here's this pause, whatever the minutes or half an hour, whatever it was from Gad going to God, David is preparing himself. I don't know what that plague was like. I don't think David had a clue until the appointed time. And this thing, that very morning it come down. That very, very morning it come down upon him. It spread like wildfire.